This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
So if you are an American who prizes and appreciates and is worried about the continued existence of our democracy, you likely watched last night's hearing conducted by the House Select Committee investigating the insurrection on January 6, 2021. The attempted overthrow of the United States government, the failed coup attempt by way of overturning a free and fair election. It was a remarkable night, a couple hours, lots of new footage was shown. And there was one moment that I want to talk about in this particular video that's going to be a doozy. And it is when Liz Cheney talked about the 7-point plan, the 7-part plan of Donald Trump. What she's describing is a criminal conspiracy to overthrow the United States government and retain power, to stay in power, to reinsert himself after a free and fair, settled American election. And I went through, and I'm going to document, listen, I've talked about this over the course of the last 18 months or so, and I have, in disparate videos, dozens of videos that go back into my catalog. It's going to be difficult for everyone to piece everything together. So right here in one place, I'm going to describe what the 7-part plan that Liz Cheney was talking about. Share this video with your social networks. Share this video with people who may not believe it. Or keep this video and share it with people that you know as a resource when wanting to know exactly what the 7-part plan is. First, I'm going to play the moment where Liz Cheney talked about this particular, what I'm going to continue to call a criminal conspiracy to overthrow the United States government.
Tonight, I'm going to describe for you some of what our committee has learned and highlight initial findings you will see this month in our hearings. As you hear this, all Americans should keep in mind this fact. On the morning of January 6th, President Donald Trump's intention was to remain President of the United States, despite the lawful outcome of the 2020 election and in violation of his constitutional obligation to relinquish power. Over multiple months, Donald Trump oversaw and coordinated a sophisticated 7-part plan to overturn the presidential election and prevent the transfer of presidential power. In our hearings, you will see evidence of each element of this plan.
And I'm going to talk about each element of that plan right now, starting with number 1. Donald Trump didn't just, after the election, start talking about it was rigged, it was fraud, I won. He preemptively created an atmosphere where people were wary, didn't trust our democracy. Talking about how if he loses, the only way he'll lose will be if it was rigged. Remember this.
So we have to win the election. We can't play games. Get out and vote. Do those beautiful absentee ballots, or just make sure your vote gets counted. Make sure, because the only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that. It's the only way we're going to lose this election.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if it was rigged. Remember that. He repeated that same sentence, virtually word for word, at stop after stop and rally after rally in TV interviews, on Twitter, that if we lose, the only way possible in Donald Trump's dumb brain for him to have lost is if it was rigged. Remember that, he kept repeating. Remember that. Remember that. And they did remember that. And after the election, in fact, on election night, Donald Trump continued with this, listing state after state after state. He names Florida, tremendous victory, Texas, Ohio, North Carolina, and then launches into, because he won those states, this is a fraud on the American people. This is rigged. Remember this from election night.
So Florida was a tremendous victory, 377,000. Texas, as we said. Ohio, think of this. Ohio, a tremendous state, a big state. I love Ohio. We won by 8.1%, 461,000. Think of it. Almost 500,000 votes. North Carolina, big victory with North Carolina. And so we won there. We lead by 76,000 votes with almost nothing left. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
Un-American, anti-democratic. This is an embarrassment to our country. This is a fraud on the American public. We are getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. That, coupled with the prior setting up of this conspiracy. Remember that. Remember that. If I lose, it was rigged. I can win all these states, that's great, but if I lose a state, it's because it was rigged. That's part one. Moving on to part two. Part two is a concerted effort to corrupt the Justice Department. Bill Barr, if you'll remember, just after the election, had quit. He quit. He wanted no party. Listen, as much of a scoundrel as Bill Barr is, he didn't want to be party to this election-rigged lie that Donald Trump was trying to propagate. Jeffrey Rosen was the acting attorney general, who wasn't party also to these lies. There was a move to insert someone named Jeffrey Clark, who was a civil rights or a environmental lawyer. He was heading up the civil division of the Department of Justice. And Scott Perry, I'm not going to get into all the details, but Scott Perry is a congressman from Florida, from Pennsylvania, who, by the way, was asking for Donald Trump for a pardon. I'm going to talk about that in a subsequent video. He was trying to get Jeffrey Clark installed as the attorney general. And Jeffrey Clark was posturing that they should write letters on behalf of the DOJ, from the DOJ to states like Georgia, to say, we have identified problems in the election that could have caused Donald Trump to lose. Fraudulent, and we are investigating those. So hold off on certifying your election. Hold off on submitting your electors. And what they were doing was attempting to use the color of law, use the force of the Department of Justice of these United States to support this election lie and pressure states to hold off on certifying their election with the true slate of electors for Joe Biden. Remember this moment shortly after the election.
The president was fixated on Georgia, and Jeffrey Clark was ready to rally with Trump behind the scenes. Clark reportedly drafted a letter to Georgia state legislators that incorrectly said DOJ was investigating accusations of voter fraud in the state and that Georgia officials should invalidate Biden's win. Top DOJ officials told Clark he was wrong and rejected Clark's request that DOJ hold a press conference announcing an investigation into voter fraud, according to The Times. Clark then met with Trump the weekend of January 2nd, and after the meeting, Clark informed Rosen Trump was going to fire the acting attorney general, and Clark would take over, according to The Times.
All of that on the part of Jeffrey Clark was lies. There was no investigation on the part of the DOJ. There was no evidence found. And to send a letter, just a letter filled with lies on DOJ letterhead is, again, another aspect, part two, in fact, of this criminal conspiracy to overthrow the United States government and reinstall Donald Trump as president of the United States. Part three. Donald Trump continuously pressured Mike Pence to not certify the electors on January 6th. There was a concerted effort on the part of John Eastman, this wacky lawyer from California, on the part of several members of the administration, including Donald Trump, to pressure Mike Pence to enact a power he does not have constitutionally, to decide the election on his own. Remember these moments from after, or actually leading up to, but also after the election, Donald Trump pressuring Mike Pence.
Tonight, thousands of pro-Trump protesters gather near the White House ahead of Congress confirming President-elect Joe Biden's victory tomorrow. President Trump promises to keep fighting it with what he considers a final test of loyalty for Vice President Mike Pence, tweeting falsely that the vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors. The president has privately and publicly pressured Mr. Pence to stop Congress from approving the election results.
I have to tell you, I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
And it wasn't just that. There was also this moment.
I hope Mike Pence comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
It had been reported back in January by the New York Times that Trump even pressured Pence on the morning of January 6th with a crude phone call. When I interviewed Trump for Betrayal, I asked him about that.
There was a report, and excuse my language, not mine, it was in the report, that you talked to him that morning and you said you could be a patriot or you can be a Did you really say that, or is that a incorrect?
I wouldn't dispute it.
Really?
I wouldn't dispute it.
He wouldn't dispute it, meaning he's admitting that you can either be a patriot or a pussy, is what he told his vice president. And then there's also a moment that I'm not going to get into here fully, and that is that he told Mike Pence, I did a video about this last year, that I'm not going to be your friend anymore if you don't do this for me. That's part 3. Part 4 is Donald Trump himself using allies like Lindsey Graham, but also himself to pressure Georgia election officials, including a state investigator. He pressured a woman in a long, rambling phone call. But most notably, he pressured Brad Raffensberger, the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia, the man who at the time ran the elections for the state. They've since changed it because of all of this, because he didn't go along with Donald Trump's wishes to overturn the election. And you'll remember Donald Trump asking, I need 11,780 votes, one more than we have. But also using his office of president to threaten, I'm informing you that what you're doing is illegal. You're really jeopardizing yourself. He was putting a full court press of pressure to get a state elected official to overturn the results of a free and fair, settled, democratic election in the United States. Remember this.
You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense, and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk. But they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
That is interference. Now there's an impaneled grand jury, a special grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, under the direction and the leadership of Fani Willis, the DA there, to investigate this particular interference in our democracy. Now listen, if you're on the ground looking at this and you're thinking, oh, step 4, it's just one thing. But this was a concerted effort. When taken together, all 7 of these explain in great depth the criminal conspiracy to enact a coup against the United States government. Let's move on to step 5, excuse me. Donald Trump's team, up to and including Rudy Giuliani and a slew of lawyers, they told Republicans all across the country to manufacture a slate of fake electors so that those electors could be sent to be counted by Congress and not the actual electors that were certified by the different states. They not only sent these to Congress and passed through their own legislatures, they did this, Republicans, they did this and submitted them to the National Records and Archives Administration. They cemented their criminality by signing, under penalty of perjury and the penalty of law, this lie that they were actual legitimate electors by the state, and they were not. Another moment for you to remember. Part 5 of this criminal conspiracy.
In Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona, Republicans filed these fake forged documents claiming that those states had actually picked Trump electors who were casting the state's electoral college votes for Trump, when in fact the real electors from those states were Biden electors. Republicans forged these documents. They submitted them, we believe, both to Congress and to the National Archives to try to pass them off as the real deal. We've been trying to get a hold of some of these people who signed their names to these forged documents to learn more about this apparent coordinated scheme, particularly since we noticed that all of the forgeries from those 5 states appear to be very similar enough that it looks like they were part of a coordinated multi-state effort.
Again, a concerted effort to overthrow the United States government. This is a criminal conspiracy with Donald Trump at the top. He wasn't just an innocent bystander in this. He wasn't just along for the ride. He was in the planning. Moving on to part 6. And that is the summoning and incitement of the insurrection. The summoning of his MAGA mob and incitement for them to go to the Capitol, him ordering them, let's go to the Capitol. I'm going to be with you. We're going to pressure these congressmen and women to do the right thing, to do the patriotic thing. Remember this remarkable moment in the history of our country.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated.
This was, of course, organized, this rally and the insurrection, organized by allies of Donald Trump, talked about in prior days by people like Steve Bannon and Roger Stone, Ali Alexander, Enrique Tarrio, Stuart Rhodes, the last 2 of which have been already charged by the Department of Justice for seditious conspiracy, which is a conspiracy, an attempt to overthrow the United States government. That's, in plain language, what seditious conspiracy is. We witnessed. Listen, the other thing we found out last night at the hearings is that a group of 250 to 300 Proud Boys didn't even watch the speech at the Ellipse. They left before the speech started to go case the joint, to go scan the area, to do a threat assessment, to do a security assessment of the United States Capitol, the Capitol Police, and the Metropolitan Police that were there. All of these things taken together paint an irrevocable picture of Donald Trump at the tip of the spear in an attempt to overthrow the United States government. Which leads us to step 7, part 7 of this. And that is, despite the pictures of the horror that was playing out before our eyes during the insurrection, during the onslaught of violence on the United States Capitol, and indeed our democracy, Donald Trump did nothing. In fact, he didn't just do nothing, he incited them further. He tweeted, when he still had a Twitter account, a tweet assailing Mike Pence, talking about how he failed us. And in the moment, at the insurrection, someone with a bullhorn, some domestic terrorist with a bullhorn, read Donald Trump's tweet, which subsequently led to the Hang Mike Pence chants. Remember this.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demands the truth.
So while a hangman's gallows that was premeditatedly constructed on the lawn of the Capitol, these terrorists, these insurrectionists, they screamed, "Hang Mike Pence." And then they entered the Capitol seeking him out. This is all a part of a criminal conspiracy, once again, to overthrow the United States government. And it was only hours later, it took him hours of cajoling and pressure and begging and pleading by staff and family members for him to make a statement, to get up and record a video. And instead of just saying, "Hey, look, go home. No, this is terrible," he talked about how special they were, talked about how loved they were, reinvigorated their justification for the attempted coup by restating that this election was stolen from them and me. Remember this. Hours into the violent attack on the United States Capitol.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
And we are likely going to see the outtakes from that particular, that was the version that was actually posted to Twitter, but there were reportedly several versions that were recorded prior that were likely tweaked by staff because they were too radical. And we're going to find this out over the course of these hearings. We're going to find out all of these details. They are going to go in depth on this 7-part plan to overthrow the United States government. They are going to prove it without beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond the shadow of a doubt. And hopefully, it puts Merrick Garland in a position that it will be undeniable to bring indictments against Donald Trump himself for incitement of insurrection, for seditious conspiracy against the United States of America. Former president, ex-president, or not, if you are guilty of this high crime, you need to face consequences. Share this video with someone who needs this information. I just laid this out, given only parts of the evidence that we could have played. I spent all morning putting this together. We need to keep this at the front of our minds, Don't listen to people like Tucker Carlson who act like it was a trespassing event. It was just a little vandalism. That's not what this was. We witnessed it with our own eyes. I refuse, for one, to be gaslit by a dullard like Tucker Carlson and others like him. What do you think? I'd love to know. You can call. Leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. You can email me daily@dollemore.com. Thanks for your time and attention today. I appreciate you very much. Follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore, just about everywhere. Let's mix it up there. And if you appreciate what I do, if you appreciate the effort that I put in to bring you the information that I believe to be so important, that I believe you to believe to be so important, please consider supporting my work. You can click the join button below this video, become a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month, just pennies a day, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast and help support my work there. I love you guys. I appreciate you very much. Stay strong. We are on top of this. We are getting to the bottom of this criminal conspiracy against you and me. Be genuine. Take care of one another.